guys, Carrie here. I wanted to do a video about an article that I was reading today on the consumption of sugar and artificial sweeteners. So basically any form of unnatural sweetness or sweet enhancement in the diet. This is part of like the research that I'm doing for the book, for the intro to the book. The book is going to be like a guide for everybody to use. So it's not going to be super in detail. It's not going to be a very long tome about all of these issues, but I do want to get some of this condensed information out to the reader. So it's sort of like a framework for understanding the way that food companies interact with the consumer. Okay, so the study that I'm reading about actually was done in California. It was a very, very small group of people. It was only 20 people. And it was based on the experiences of the author and her experiences with sugar and cutting sugar out of her diet, because when she was a kid, she was like a sugarholic, like all kids and a lot of people. And then she decided in her 20s that she was going to take it out of her diet. And some of the things that she noticed immediately was that it altered completely how her palate reacted to certain foods, and to most foods actually. And foods that she had never considered sweet before, she was sensing as sweet. And so she does preface this by saying that, how many items are artificially sweetened, and it's something like somewhere in the range of 70 to 80% of foods that are sold in North America are artificially sweetened, either by added sugars or artificial sweeteners. Just kind of crazy. The study was done in California through Kaiser Permanente, a group of their patients. And I'm going to post the study down below so that you can take a look at it. And if you want to do this challenge that they did as a part of the study, you could do that too. It also has some really interesting information in it in regards to the types of sweeteners that they use in commercial production of food, and how you can find them. So you see here, there's this long list. And this is the thing, in Canada, where I am from, the way that people are allowed to put advertisements on, or labeling requirements on food is very different from here. I had someone the other day send me a picture of the sweetened creamer that they were using in their coffee, and on the front of the label it says sugar-free. When you look at the ingredients, the first ingredient was water and the second ingredient was corn syrup, which is sugar. So I don't know how they're allowed to get away with that, because there was actually 3 different types of additives that act like sugar in the body. And I was pretty surprised and appalled by that the fact that it actually says sugar-free on the label, but it was using corn syrup as its second ingredient, which means it's the second largest ingredient in volume next to water. And it's possible that they're able to do that because on the nutrient deck, the serving size is fairly small, and they're allowed to be 20% off on their serving on their calories, or on their counts, on their gram counts. And on top of that, if it's below a certain threshold, they can put 0. So there are various ways that food companies can sort of massage those nutrient decks and the nutritional information table in order to make it look better than it actually is. That's why it's actually really important to read the ingredients. And even in this study, all of her participants were asked to really, really look at those labels and to treat sugar and artificial sweeteners the same, because it wasn't a matter of calories or glycemic reaction even, it was a matter of taste perception. And sweet is sweet, and in fact, some of those sweeteners can be as much as she quotes, 13,000 times sweeter than natural sugar. Which is crazy, right? So they can get away with putting in a really, really small amount, and it can still taste super, super sweet. I found this myself because when I stopped eating any kind of added sugars or sweeteners, I'd go and have a piece of celery, and the celery just tasted like sweet. And it was really surprising. And then when I tried stuff that was sweetened, I found it was so sweet, or like even sugar. It was so sweet that it was actually unpleasant. All right, so let me get on with this. So, Environmental Working Group has found almost 60% of the 80,000 products evaluated contain sugar. I've seen much higher quotes than that. Because it depends on what they're evaluating, right? Alrighty. American Heart Association's recommendation of sugar for women is no more than 6 teaspoons. What we actually get, the average American consumes about half a cup of added sugars in their food. 1 can of soda generally has 10 teaspoons of sugar. So if you've had a half a can of soda, that's close to your daily allotment of sugar, as is recommended by the American Heart Association. Sugars are added to a ton of different foods. Okay, so changing your palate. This is really interesting. So what she said, that once she had cut out all this added sweeteners in her diet, she had some friends over and she made a strawberry and banana smoothie, which she felt was very sweet and tasted really, really good. And all of her friends who were used to eating lots of sugar and sweeteners actually said that it was too sour and that they wanted to add sugar to it. She relates information about another friend of hers who was used to eating a lot of artificial sweeteners every day, and she was over for Thanksgiving, and everybody was eating the same dessert, and she found the dessert so unpalatable that she actually added several packets of sweetener to the dessert to make it to a level where she thought it tasted good. So it's actually pretty extreme how much it can actually alter your taste bud and taste perception. So they did this 2-week challenge where it was take out all of that added sugar and stuff, including juice. Coffee was a big one to look out for because there are so many coffee products that are artificially sweetened or sweetened with sugar. And even to limit certain types of natural sweet foods. So limit fruits to 4 to 5 servings a day and dried fruits to 2 servings a day, because that's sort of like the concentrated fruit and contains more sugar. And then there's a whole slew of different additives that when I post this, you can go click over to the article and print that out. So how difficult was this test to actually do? So about half of the participants said that after 3 days, their cravings for sugar went away. Because as we all know, sweet makes you want sweet. And so if you're used to eating that, that's sort of like the food that your brain wants to go to. That's why people say that really does have addictive qualities. 86% of the participants did not have sugar cravings after 6 days. So for most people, a week might be all that it takes to really get used to not having all that added sweetness in the diet. And this is what's really interesting. So she found after the 2-week challenge, 95%, so it's basically 18 out of the 19 people who responded, found that sweet foods and drinks tasted too sweet or sweeter than they had before. 75% found that other foods such as baby carrots, apples, and even crackers tasted sweeter than they did before. And 35% said that they lost weight, and weight loss was not even an intended outcome of the study. There was no purpose to lose weight. But sugar like sugar, sweetness like sweetness, and it encourages you to eat more. Sugar is like one of the only substances that basically makes you a bottomless pit for that substance. There's no feedback mechanism to tell you to stop eating sugar. That's why, like, kids will eat sugar. Like, if those of you who have kids may have experienced this. On Halloween, you get a big bag of candy. Kids will eat sugar until they're physically sick from it. something like fat, after a certain amount of it, you kind of push yourself away from the table because it has satiating qualities to it, whereas sugar does not. Think about, like, on a hot day, if you have like sweetened tea, heavily sweetened tea, how much of that can you drink versus how much water would you drink? You'd probably drink more of the sweetened tea than you would of straight up water. And I think that's why there's so many people in the bariatric community who, to get their water requirements in, they put the sweetened packets, the Crystal Light, and all those types of things into their drink. But it really changes the way that your body and your mind and your taste buds perceive natural foods that are really good for us. And so it's something to really be cognizant of, because it can really play a large role in changing your eating habits. And if you're looking to adopt a more whole foods, natural diet, one of the biggest targets to hit first is getting the sweet stuff out of your diet, because it'll help you make that transition to healthier foods, and they're going to taste better to you than they would if you were still consuming that other stuff, which is not really good for you. They also talk about how those sweeteners, they mentioned a little bit the study that I talked about in my last video. So here they write, recent research has linked artificial sweeteners to a number of health problems, including metabolic syndrome, decrease in kidney function, which is crazy, and possibly even a disruption in the regulation of blood sugar caused by changes in the microbiota. So that is your gut bacteria. So, this is something that we should probably pay attention to, because, if we had weight loss surgery, we probably did because we wanted to improve our health. And one of the best ways to improve your health is to give yourselves the most nutrient-dense diet that you can, filled with healthy, natural foods, which is the way that I believe that we were meant to eat. Alrighty. So, yeah, really, really major changes after people took that sweet stuff out of the diet. So she says, although it was a small survey, the results suggest that we can make consuming less sugar or no sugar easier by cutting it out for at least 2 weeks. And when we go back to our regular diet, it's going to have changed our taste perception of those things, and so they won't necessarily be as palatable as they were before, and things that maybe we didn't like as much that were healthier for us are better. And I know for me, out of my own personal experience, like if I have Concord grapes in the summer, Concord grapes are the type of grapes that they make Welch's grape juice out of, but the Welch's grape juice is like it's basically concentrated form. And to me, it tastes like grape Hubba Bubba, which is, it's almost too sweet. In fact, I don't like them that much because it can be a little bit overwhelming. But like stuff like, and that's the thing, like stuff like celery that you never really think of as like sweet, tastes really sweet to me. Small cereals, blah, blah. So, yeah. In the conclusion, she does talk a little bit about how the placement of sugar in so many of these products, she writes, in a very real sense, we were being set up to desire and consume more and more sugar. So when you think about it, if you're used to a high level of, and not just sugar, sweetness of any kind, including all of our bariatric products, our vitamins, our protein shakes, protein bars, all those things contain a lot of artificial sweeteners in them. And, they talk about premium protein shakes, right? The strawberry shakes, they've got the banana cream pie. Everything is all sweet, caramel this and mocha that, and everything is overwhelmingly sweet. You don't really see, like, pea soup flavor, right? And people might be like, oh, well, because pea soup flavor is yucky. But maybe it's yucky because we're used to eating all this other stuff. I think it is definitely worthwhile to evaluate where the sweet factor has in your diet and your level of influence and your choices, how much of it comes from that. So yeah, I'm going to post this down below. Let me know if you've done this, if you've cut out sugar and sweeteners, especially because the sweeteners work on those taste buds even more than actual sugar does. So yeah, and let me know how it went for you and how it affected how your taste buds changed and how your preferences changed, because I'd really love to hear about that. I know for me it's made a huge, huge difference. And it's weird to think that I could be sitting at a table with a bunch of other people and we are all eating the same stuff and it tastes completely different to me than it does to everybody else. And as far as the food industry, yeah, so there's a reason why they're putting all this stuff in the food, and it's because they want you to have a preference for their products and not other stuff, right? There's no subsidies on, you know, carrots and corn and tomatoes, but there's plenty of subsidies on sugar and wheat and corn syrup, right? And so those products are inexpensive, and the consumers will go back to those products that have the added sugars in them because that's where their palates have reset to. It's important to keep this in mind when you're shopping, and when you choose the stuff that you feed your body. And feeding your body feeds your mind, feeds your soul, feeds everything. And good health to you all. Good luck with it if you try to do it, and let me know about it. Bye.